Hello friends. Today is Migrant and Refugee Sunday. The plight of migrants and refugees is so visible to us today. We've all seen in the news the distress that often occurs in the circumstances of migrants and refugees. This has become a global challenge, but it's also one for us here in Australia. So what might this all mean for you and me and our local communities of grace? How can we become engaged in this social and moral issue? Well, the theme for this year's World Day of Migrants and Refugees is A Church Without Frontiers, Mother to All. This is a call to openness, generosity and compassion. As people of Christian faith already living here in Australia, there is much that we can learn from families who are arriving from overseas, seeking to make their home with us. I've asked Sandie Cornish, an expert in Catholic social teaching, to speak with us about how the Church can lead the way in respect and care for migrants.
When my mother arrived in Australia in the early 1960s to start a new life with the young Australians she had met in her home country of Malaysia, settling in was a challenge, but she never regretted her choice. Today, more than 51 million people on the move fall under the mandate of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Many of us understand something of these experiences from our own family stories, because these days almost 30% of Australians were born overseas. We can't resolve all the injustices experienced by migrants and refugees around the world, but we're not powerless either. I'd like to suggest 3 things we can do by ourselves or with our parish communities. First, offer friendship to people who come from cultures other than our own. One of my most painful childhood memories is of witnessing the racism that my mother experienced in our parish community. It makes such a difference to have local friends who can help us to become familiar with language and culture and how things work. It's easy to be informed. The Australian Catholic Migrant and Refugee Office is a reliable source of information. Check their website or give them a call. All of us are responsible for promoting social inclusion in what Pope Francis describes as a world in which no one is seen as useless, out of place or disposable. Offer friendship, be informed, promote social inclusion. 3 simple ways of making God's love present to migrants and refugees.
Thank you, Sandie. As a church, we are called to open our arms and welcome all people without distinction or limits, responding to this globalisation of migration with friendship, generosity and cooperation. Our Pope Francis reminds us that from the beginning, the Church has been a mother with a heart open to the whole world and has a world that is meant to be without borders. This is a call to educate ourselves and others in becoming motherly doers of God's word, by responding compassionately to the trials of those escaping difficulty and danger, and by overcoming prejudice and fear in ourselves. Our faith compels us to welcome strangers and put into action the commandment to love God with all our heart and mind and strength, and to love others as we love ourselves. So we are called to be friends and neighbours to those seeking our help. On this Migrant and Refugee Sunday, as we gather to celebrate the great sacrament of communion, let us also consider our moral and social communion with our brothers and sisters who are seeking to make a new home and life among us.